Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
And so, upon further examination, I have come to the following conclusion. Imagination is more important than knowledge.
You mean to tell me that imagination and retirement planning go hand in hand? Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
With an estimated IQ of 180, the late great Albert Einstein was, in his day and to this day, considered one of the most intelligent minds ever to walk the face of the earth. Famous for his complicated and earth-shattering theory of relativity, Einstein has also been credited with, of all things, the paper towel. Hey, at least he created one object that we could all understand. Yet as intelligent as old Albert was, his most famous quote regarding the importance of imagination over IQ was this one, and it's a truth and observation that I would consider to be his biggest humdinger of them all. So what does one's imagination have to do with creating a worry-free retirement? Well, we can only imagine. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker, and today we're going to conclude our three-part series on how to leverage your retirement with the secret leveraging ingredient available to us all called imagination. But before we imagine what the rest of this show is going to do with your retirement, let me introduce three imaginary folks in the studio today. America's favorite financial sidekick, aka Aaron Einstein, Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson, and our associate producer, Miss Meek and Mild Mary Beth Combs. Okay, there you sit, trying to figure out why a retirement planning specialist is spending valuable time talking about imagination when I could be sharing the latest tips on how to beat inflation or whether now is the time to invest in Bitcoin. I would rather, though, discuss what Albert Einstein discovered, and that is this: the importance of imagination over knowledge. You see, after more than 37 years of meeting face-to-face with more than 15,000 savers, I have discovered that imagination is, in many cases, much more important than knowledge, especially when it comes to how best to use and enjoy your money before it's too late. In fact, to imagine or envision what it is you want to do with this money, it doesn't take a high IQ at all. All you need to be worry-free in retirement is a safe and simple game plan orchestrated by a knowledgeable financial advisor who understands money in retirement, which we do. Let's face it, of the three forms of financial leverage, time, money, and imagination, imagination is the only form of leverage that comes in an unlimited supply. Time and money do not. So how can we use this powerful God-given planning tool called imagination to help us create a worry-free retirement? Well, stay tuned as I reveal how our process at Tony Walker Financial will help turn imagination into reality to help you get the things you really want in life. Good stuff coming your way. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Some 20 years ago, I imagined a process that would be unlike any other financial process available, one that was geared towards savers, not investors or speculators. I called this unique 5-step process the worry-free retirement process. Interesting that the first step of our process doesn't start with how much money you have or what rate of return we hope to earn on your money. No, it starts not with money, but rather with this powerful tool you and I have at our disposal called imagination, a step I refer to as clarify your vision. You see, of all the things we can leverage, our time, our money, and lastly, our imagination, I truly believe that, like Einstein, harnessing our imagination is sometimes more important than acquiring more knowledge. Whereas time and money are limited, imagination is not. Earlier, we focused on Albert Einstein's brilliant imagination and how it led to new discoveries like the theory of relativity and the paper towel. But are there other more modern-day examples of things people imagine that others thought impossible to achieve? Well, how about the personal computer? You know, prior to 1976, only large businesses could afford these mammoth computers. That is, until a 21-year-old young man named Steve Jobs, along with his good friend Steve Wozniak, imagined a small personal computer sitting on everyone's desk. Up until then, no one could imagine how you could harness the power of a computer, taking up an entire room, into something small enough to sit on your desk. Today, imagine holding the power of those same mainframe computers into the palm of your hand. Well, there it is. Imagine that. So let's get back to you and your retirement. How can one's imagination lead to another way of looking at money and life and doing the things you really want to do during this brief stay here on Earth? Well, recently I sent one of our associate producer of the WorryFree Retirement Show herself, Miss Mary Beth Combs, and my daughter Lacey to interview a client of mine who years ago walked away from a lucrative job to pursue something he imagined but never thought possible. I really think you're going to find this story interesting. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, her and I were high school sweethearts. So right out of high school, we got married. She was 20, I was 21, and I had to go get a real job. So I went to Cleveland and got a job as a technician in a powder coating factory. I moved all over the country, going for the next job, the next raise, the next position, and I was meant for something else. You know, there's something bigger, something out there, and I need to go for that. And then a better job came up. Ends up down in Louisville, I went to a company as technical director, which I was over quality control and research and development labs for that company. So I was like at the pinnacle of, you know, my field. I was as high as I could possibly go. I was making rock star money, and then God got a hold of me. I got saved at 36 and totally changed everything. Could feel him wanting me to go towards full-time ministry, but we really didn't see how we could do that. And that's when we met Tony. And then he must have, I don't know if God prompted him or if he just felt something, but he says, "What do you really want to do?" But I can remember thinking, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm doing it. I'm there. I'm the man in that company. I'm making 6 figures. I've got it licked. But then he said, "No, really, what do you want to do with your life?" I said, "I want to be full-time ministry." We had a big house in Oldham County. I had a payment on my Jeep still, and to go, when we went full-time ministry, I took an 85% pay cut. We bought a house in Frankfurt. We put money in the bank. I mean, on paper, it should have never worked, you know.
But he was just preparing and getting us ready for this next part of our life. Mm-hmm. So
there's some pieces of life that's about the money, but that never brings you happiness or joy. It's, now it's knowing that I'm in God's will, I'm doing what he wants me to do, and I love my life.
Well, we realize that in life that just following God and what his will and our lives are way more important than really things and money, and we live a simple life and we trust God and he will provide for us, and we're just thankful that we were obedient to his calling, and he gets all the credit and all the glory for our life, and we're thankful for that.
So, how do I help people think through such weighty matters, such as the ones with the Abrams? How do we do this? How can we imagine or envision what it is that might be possible, and how are we going to get there? Well, one of the tools I learned while participating years ago in a program called Strategic Coach is something the founder, Dan Sullivan, refers to as the R factor exercise. So this might be of help to you. So let me show you, go over to the whiteboard here, how this exercise works. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but this is something, if we decide to meet, if you'd like me to go through this for your retirement planning, things you're thinking about doing in the future, I'll be happy to walk you through this. I've got a lot of experience in using this particular tool. So what you do with the R factor is you basically pick a period of time. Now, I know the grammar is going to sound odd here, but we're envisioning into the future. Then in the future, we're imagining we're looking back over that period of time we've chosen to see what would be considered a success. So the question is, what has to have happened over the past, let's say, 5 years, for instance, to be successful? So you might say, okay, Tony, if I retire and in 5 years looking forward, then I'm looking back. Let's say you might say, well, I've got to be out of debt. Maybe that's something. I want to be able to travel. I had a couple in yesterday. I had several appointments yesterday. They recently purchased a travel trailer and a new truck. So we'll just call it a truck and camper or whatever. Maybe help the grandkids. That might be something. Okay. So anyway, you're just listing all these things out so that you can actually start clarifying your vision of what it is you want. And at the end of that period, whatever you've chosen, a year, 3 years, 5 years, these are the things that you'd want to happen. And you say, okay, that's all well and good. Well, it doesn't stop there because there's a problem. It's called the real world. And this is something Mr. Sullivan calls DOS. What that stands for, the D is for dangers, O is for opportunities, and S is for strengths. Now, what does he mean by this? So an example would be, well, I want to pay off debt. Well, that's great, but there could be a danger because the only money you have, for instance, let's say is in a 401k plan, and that darn thing has a tax tumor. So while you think you can just yank that money out, you're going to pay a lot of taxes in order to pay off the home. That might be a danger we might consider. Opportunities. You might, on the one hand, with the live well, die broke philosophy, because Wall Street has told you to just keep stockpiling more and more money, and your advisor has never showed you how to spend and enjoy this money. Through our live well, die broke philosophy, you might say, hey, wait a minute. Why not spend some of this money now, take money out of the 401k right now because the taxes are so low compared to where they might be in the future, may be, again, an example of an opportunity. And then finally, a strength might be, and we're staying with the 401k theme here, you do have this 401k, for instance, and let's say it's a sizable 401k, and now armed with somebody like Tony Walker Financial, our experienced, our local firm, our proprietary software, now the strength is we're going to be able to show you through our proprietary software how you can use and enjoy this money through our split IRA concept, and guess what? Without the fear of running out of money. Pretty cool stuff. So if you really don't have an advisor that's taking you through a process of understanding what you have and, more importantly, how you're going to use and enjoy this stuff before it's too late, why not? My name is Tony Walker, the owner of Tony Walker Financial, and I would be happy to sit down with you to go through this process. All you got to do, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or you can simply give us a call at the toll-free number on your screen. Some good stuff coming back. We're going to go through a little exercise and imagine that you're getting ready to retire and you're trying to find a trusted advisor to help you. We went through a little exercise to determine how many advisors are located just in a 10-mile radius of our offices in Louisville, Kentucky. The answers are going to surprise you, and yep, we're going to bring back Aaron Einstein to help us do some math. So good stuff coming your way. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll be right back. Warning, a licensed insurance agent with no prior knowledge of annuities can legally toss your 401k into an annuity. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now, back to the Worry-Free Retirement with your host, Tony Walker.
Let's imagine for a minute that you are 62 years of age, worked hard all of your life for 40 years, married, have grown children who are self-sufficient, and you wish to retire. How are you going to pull that off? And more importantly, who are you going to trust with your life savings that will be there for you over the long haul? I mean, there's a ton of advisors happy to handle your money when you retire, but how do you find the advisor that will work in your best interest, someone who truly understands the world of retirement planning? Well, let's see if we can help. Let's start with our offices here in Louisville, Kentucky at 8303 Shelbyville Road. Our research provided to us by my favorite son-in-law tells us that within about a 10-mile radius of our offices, there are approximately 2,000 advisors and agents in this area alone. So imagine you interview each of these advisors for 30 minutes per advisor. Now that's a lot of time on your part. In fact, to help us calculate the amount of time you'll need to spend interviewing all of these 2,000 advisors, let's turn to our own Aaron Einstein to see just how much time it will take.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, let's go through the calculations. If you have 2,000 advisors and you meet with them for 30 minutes each, that comes to a total of 60,000 minutes, which translates to 1,000 hours, which translates to over 40 days. That sounds like too much time to me, Tony.
I agree, Aaron. Sounds like a lot of wasted time to me. So let's see if I can make this easy for you. Let's imagine that the 2,000 advisors in this area, 1,000 of those advisors are independent. In other words, they don't work for a big firm, but they're there to work for themselves and work for you. Well, that whittles it down a little bit, but that's still 1,000 advisors. That's a lot of people to see. So what about this? What if we find out that of those 1,000 advisors, 300 are fiduciaries, required by law to work in your best interest? Well, that helps a lot, but still you got 300 people you got to talk to. But let's keep whittling this down. Let's say only 10 of those 300 actually have more than 20 years of retirement planning experience. Now we're getting somewhere. Now at least you could interview 10 advisors. That's still a lot of people to talk to. So let's keep whittling this down some more. Let's say of the 10 advisors left to interview, only 3 of them are actually the owners of the company, and those 3 advisors, as the owners, will meet with you in person and also be there for you for the long haul. Now that's getting down to the brass tacks. So you interview all 3 of these advisors out of all this 2,000, but then one of those, which happens to be yours truly, is the only advisor that has a proprietary software built for savers that allows you, the saver, and us as your advisor to monitor your situation long into retirement, as the changes that will come your way surely will. So let's take a look at this software, something I spent lots and lots of money on years ago. Years ago it was kind of interesting. Our own Heather Hughes and I, who kind of came up with the original planning software that we used, was done through spreadsheets. And man, it took forever. And I imagined with Heather, I said, Heather, as our practice is growing, you cannot keep doing these individual spreadsheets. And I envisioned this software. So I paid well into the 6 figures to have a computer programmer take my vision and create this. And man, this stuff is awesome, because what happens is, first of all, most people come in, they don't have game plans like this. We're going to do this free of charge. They're going to see all of their information laid out like this. Most of them say it's the first time I've ever seen anything like this. But more importantly, this is what we use long term. So again, when you have changes down the road, we pull up the software. It's personalized to you. This is not boilerplate retirement planning software. This is individualized software I've created for the saver. So let's kind of take a look at how this looks. I don't think I've ever done a deep dive into this. So it starts off, and again, remember, this person was 62 years of age, and notice that's the spouse, 60, so that's why there's 2 different ages there. And all you do is you track that as they get older, year by year. Anything in peach, those would be the items that what we call are the fixed income. That would be things like wages, pensions, Social Security, rental income. And you notice everything's annualized. It comes out on the model. Then everything in green, this was a pretty large case we worked on. came over to us. There's a variety of annuities, our Charles Schwab accounts. Some of them are non-qualified, some are qualified. I think there's some Roths in there. I mean, there's a lot of detailed work that goes into this. This probably, to build this case out for this person, remember, there's no cost to do this for the person either. These are just prospects at this point. Probably took us 4 or 5 hours to do all this. A lot of work goes into this. And then you can see as you add that up in this example, $95,000 a year to live on before taxes. And you might say, well, do you calculate the taxes, Tony? No, we don't do that. I mean, that would be nonsense because we don't know what the future taxes are going to be. So to keep this simple, we always work on a gross basis. And then with our own Leanne Tinsley in our Bowling Green office, who is tax certified, we will monitor those taxes and your income as the tax laws change over time. That's a free service as well that many people don't offer. So basically, this is years 1 through 5 of retirement. But then look at this next screen. Look at what happens here. Now this person is into full-blown retirement mode. No more wages, pensions, Social Securities. We call these file drawers. All these file drawers start opening up and we start pulling out money at different times. And notice here the income actually goes up during this period of time. May have been a reason for that. In this particular case, maybe the person wanted to spend more money to travel, maybe had some weddings and things like that. That's the beauty of the software. We can do anything you want with this software based on what happens with you and your retirement in the future. So I don't know about you, but if you're looking at something like this and going, Tony, all I've got's a bunch of annuities, or all I've got's a bunch of stock brokerage statements I don't understand, or I got this 401k I know nothing about, I don't understand the taxes, don't know when to take Social Security. If you'd like something like this, we'll be happy to go through an analysis with you. Again, there's no cost or obligation to see this software in action. Here's what you got to do though. If you're retired or nearing retirement, just simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started, or you can call the toll-free number on your screen. And what we'll do, I'll first have a phone call with you, 10-minute free fiduciary phone call over at Warrants. I'll be happy to meet with you at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about using your imagination to allow you to spend more time with God and get closer to Him? Oh yeah, some good stuff coming your way. But first, let me get another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Whether you're a longtime viewer of the WorryFree Retirement or just catching it for the first time, know this: you can watch past episodes and educational clips by visiting our YouTube channel. Just log on to youtube.com and search Tony Walker Financial.
Years ago, I was having lunch in a fast food joint with a dear brother in Christ whom I'll call Jim. At the time, Jim was very active in church, served as a deacon, headed up a weekly Bible study, and tried his best to serve others as often as he could. Yet, I could tell that Jim was very depressed. I asked what was wrong, and he said that while he was trying to do more and more to serve the Lord, he felt more distant from Him than ever before. I asked him what God could do to strengthen him, to which Jim replied, well, if God loved me as much as He says He does, He'd send Jesus to sit here with me right now instead of seated up there next to Him in heaven. You know, it's an interesting phenomenon, this walk of faith and serving God. Based on God's timing, we receive this free gift called grace, and instead of accepting it for what it is and resting in it, we imagine that there is something we must constantly do to keep it. We see an example of working to please the Lord versus resting in Him play out in Luke 10:38, where Jesus is welcomed into the home of a lady named Martha and her sister Mary. Now, while the Son of God is seated in the home of Martha and Mary, instead of taking a seat and enjoying the company of Jesus, as Mary is doing, Martha is running around the house like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to serve and do for Jesus. Noticing that Mary is doing nothing to help, Martha in verse 40 complains to Jesus that she is the only one doing any work. But notice what Jesus says to Martha in verse 41. First of all, He reminds her not to worry. I like that advice. And then in the next verse, He says this, Martha, there's only one thing you must choose to do, and your sister Mary has chosen well. Now, in his masterful book, Sit, Walk, Stand, Watchman Nee focuses on an interesting verse of Scripture found in Ephesians 2:6 that emphasize what Jesus is talking about and exactly what Mary was doing. That is, sitting down with Jesus and resting instead of working. You see, when you sit down with Jesus, all the worries of the world vanish. But if you think worrying about doing more and more for Jesus is the answer, well, just like Martha and my friend Jim, you'll soon be disappointed. Which, when you think about it, resting, not worrying, and sitting does make sense. It's easy to grow weary when all you're doing is worrying and scurrying around and working all the time. But when you sit down, oh yeah, that's when the rest comes into play. Rest from a weary world that in the end offers us nothing but a lot of work and worry. So here's what I'd like you to do. Imagine that you're in Ephesians 2:6, that Ephesians 2:6 is actually true, that you're seated with Christ, that He is with you now, not later. Imagine with the power of the Son of God with you right now, how much less you'd be worried about the temporary things of this world. Need more proof of being seated with Christ? Well, check out Colossians 3:1 and see if this doesn't stir your imagination, where Paul says, "If you then have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God." And notice in verse 2, Paul suggests that we are to set our mind on the things above, not on the things of the earth. It's a profound truth that reminds us that God is with us and we are by His grace and mercy already seated with Christ, and that's all the imagination you and I need to get through this day. Amen? Well, how about you? You might be saying, "Tony, that's some good news indeed, and I'm going to start imagining that I'm already seated with Christ in heaven. But partner, in the meantime, I need to sit down with somebody like you to figure out how I can be a better steward of this money and create this written game plan you keep talking about. How can I arrange to be seated with you to find out how you, Tony, can help me with my money?" Well, that's easy, because I'll be happy to sit down with you at any time, and best of all, to sit down with me, there is absolutely no cost or obligation. Plus, we'll provide you a written game plan at no cost to you. You see, at Tony Walker Financial, I've made it my life's mission to create a retirement planning firm who is personal and local, a firm that will do our best to serve your needs and, more importantly, to put a plan in place for you and your money to enjoy it before it's too late. So if sitting down with an experienced retirement planning specialist, someone who has met with over 15,000 savers, sounds like a plan, let's stop imagining what it might be like and take action today. You can do so by either logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and then just click on that Let's Get Started button, or if you like, simply call the toll-free number on your screen. After you do so, we can then set up a time by phone, or if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you in our Bowling Green office, Louisville, Kentucky office, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. Next week, we're going to talk about something I call the 7-year itch and why the year 2022 reminds me a lot of that devastating year in the stock market in 2008. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.